Hey everyone, today I'm going to be doing a video ranking the entire Dark Tower series. Now I finished this series a little while ago, but I've kind of had a bit of a shit run trying to make this video. The first time I did it, the video got corrupted. The second time I did it was my fault. I accidentally used my computer microphone instead of my actual microphone and the audio sounded like shit. So hopefully third time's a charm. There's not really a hell of a lot else to say, aside from the fact that there will be spoilers in this video for all the Dark Tower books, so do not watch this video if you haven't read the entire series. I'm serious about that. And also I just wanted to say, I just really wanted to get my thoughts out there on this series because so many people have differing opinions on it and it's just so unique. Like, for example, the book at the bottom of my list could be at the top of someone else's list, and the book at the top of my list could be at the bottom of someone else's list. Anyway, that's about all I have to say, so let's go ahead and get right into it. Coming in at number 8 on my list, this is just like by far and away the worst book in the series for me, and I don't understand how anyone would disagree with me, which is kind of breaking what I said in the intro. But number 8 on my list is The Wind Through the Keyhole. This is really unnecessary. He wrote it about 8 years after finishing the series. It's boring. You barely get to spend any time with the quartet, and even the small amount of time that you do, it just doesn't feel right. It feels like they're just kind of gone. They're not actually a part of the series anymore. It just feels disjointed and disconnected from the rest of the series. I absolutely hated the structure of this one. It's like a story within a story within a story. It was really annoying because you'd start one story and then you'd get into that one. You're like, oh, this is okay. No, cut. Let's go to another one. And you're like, oh, for fuck's sake. Then you read that one, and then you're like, okay, I'm kind of getting into this. Nope, let's switch to another one. And it's just like, oh, fuck. I just found it really, really irritating to read. I didn't like any of the characters in any of the other stories. I didn't think there was any real atmosphere, which is a shame because the Dark Tower series, at least to me, is one of the most atmospheric things I've ever read. And this just feels so out of place. And for me, it taints a perfect series. So I fucking despise this book. When I reread the series, I'm probably not going to reread this one. There's nothing really to enjoy. Now let's just move on. Now we're getting into the actual part of the list, and this is where things can become really divisive because at number 7 on my list, we have a book that I see a lot of people saying is their favorite in the series, or at least one of their favorites, but so many people love this book. And I just don't. And that has got to be Wizard and Glass. Now, don't get me wrong, I do enjoy this book quite a lot. I do think it is pretty good. I love the fact that this book really makes you understand and like Roland as a character. It gives a little bit more light on his past and gives context as to why he does the things that he does. And I really like that. The last 200 pages or so of this book is excellent. I find that to be really, really, really well written and really just ties everything into a neat little bow and gets you ready to keep going on with the series. I really enjoy the way the story concludes. And the opening is great too. The way it finishes off the Wastelands, the little part with the cliffhanger, I think it wraps it up excellently. I think Rhea of the Coos is a really good villain too. Maybe not a villain, but like a really good evil character. Just so disgusting and vile and creepy and just weird and disgusting. But where this book falls for me is in the story. For the most part, this story is just extremely disposable. And when you have a story this disposable and you have a book this long, it's a bit of a slog at points. I find that really, really frustrating to read sometimes because I'm just like, I don't care what's happening. Nothing that really happens in the book makes a massive difference. There's like a couple of scenes, like the scene at Jericho Hill with the Horn of Eld, that plays back into it a bit later on in the series, but aside from that, not really. It's more just the ending of the story that really does when he looks into the wizard's glass and just the way the love of his life was taken away from him. Who, by the way, Susan is an awful character. I think she's just terrible. I never felt chemistry between them once throughout this book. The only reason her burning on a stake was sad was because you really feel bad for Roland, and you kind of just you just realize why he's so kind of fucked up from that. And overall, I don't remember a hell of a lot that happens in this book. Like, For a series that's so crazy and wacky, this is really, it's a forgettable book. And I don't know, I know it's a lot of people's favourite, but I'm not going to continue to try to justify myself. It's just not one of mine. It's a good book, but not great. Coming in at number 6 on my list, we have Wolves of the Calla. Now this is a big book. It's massive. I'm pretty sure it's the biggest in the series. And while it does contain its fair share of flaws, I absolutely love this book. I really love the atmosphere in this one. The town of Calla Sturgis is really well set up. I love the Todash as well. That's such a crazy concept. The quartet in this book just have great development. I love seeing them with the town and just all the different characters and just weirdos in the town. And I really love the concept of the way the quartet have to protect this small village from a group of attackers, kind of like a bit of a supernatural retelling of Seven Samurai. I think that's really cool. The final fight between the wolves is good, like it is really good. It's just very short. It's probably only about 20 pages worth, which when you have a book this big building up to it, you could have done with a little bit more. Nonetheless, it's really well done and really trippy with the snitches and the lightsabers and whatnot. The introduction of Father Callahan to the series is awesome, and his backstory is very interesting and absolutely definitely necessary to the series, but I do find it to be a little bit too long-winded for it to, like, the amount of purpose it ends up serving in the story. I think it's a little bit too much of it. Definitely could have trimmed it down a little bit. It sets up great mystery with what the wolves actually are. I love the way it's kind of set up. The wolves, they come and take one of the twins from each of the twins in town, and they send them off, and they come back root, and they're really fucked up, and they grow to giant sizes before dying really young. And you're just like, what the fuck are they doing to them, and why? And I really like that mystery aspect. And I absolutely adore the way it opens a door into the craziness of what books 6 and 7 are. You have the addition of Salem's Lot as a work of fiction within the Dark Tower series, and that leads to some crazy stuff down the line. Anyway, Wolves of the Calla, absolutely fantastic book. Really love this one. Number 5 on my list, we have another book that I do think has its fair share of flaws, but is one that I still love despite all that, and that is Song of Susannah. Now this book, compared to books 5 and book 7, this one is short. It is just action-packed from the word go, and it does not stop until the final page, and I love it. It has an excellent pace. There's always so much going on. You're following just like a couple of different storylines, about 3 as a matter of fact. You're following Susannah and Mia as she's pregnant with the child from the thing in the wastelands, plus Roland's thing with the Oracle Succubi and the Gunslinger that gets a little bit convoluted and reaches a bit beyond its grasp at points. It doesn't really make a hell of a lot of sense, but I do think that it ends up getting roped back in quite nicely. You have the scenes with Jake and Father Callahan in New York kind of looking for Susannah, and then you have the scenes with Eddie and Roland in Maine looking for a man named Stephen King, so that they can convince him to keep writing the rest of the series so that they can finally reach the tower. This book is batshit wild. It is insane. It's crazy. I love it for that. I love the scene when Susannah is giving birth to Mordred. It is just so weird and atmospheric and just in this weird fuck off place. And I absolutely love it. And overall, Song of Susannah, while it definitely does reach a bit beyond its grasp and has a little bit too much ambition in some points, I do really love this book. And especially book 7 kind of reins in the ambition from Song of Susannah and handles it all really well. So the flaws that this book does have really don't bother me that much at all. I absolutely love this one, and that's about all I have to say for it. Now, from number 4 all the way through to number 1 on my list, these are all like top 20 Stephen King books for me. So that shows you how much I love these books. And coming in at number 4, we have The Dark Tower, the finale to this amazing series. First thing I want to mention about this, what I just talked about, I really love the way it manages to rein in the craziness from Song of Susannah and just make it make a little bit more sense and kind of just get things back going on the path of the beam to the tower again. I think it's excellently handled, and it all goes really well. All the scenes in the Dixie Pig and Fedek and Thunderclap and all that stuff, and then meeting Ted and Sheemy again and Dinky, it just all really works. The reveal of what the wolves actually do, they steal the children and get the brain juice to suck it out and put it into the breakers to give them more power to telepathically destroy each of the beams, as a really crazy plot by the Crimson King. That's an excellent reveal. It's so weird, but it just worked perfectly. I don't know how else to describe it aside from that. Eddie's death is devastating. It's at the shootout at Blue Heaven, which is a really, really damn good scene and a really atmospheric and creepy place, especially in the illustrated editions. Jake's death hurts even more because he's doing it to save Stephen King and always there by his side, and I don't want to talk about it anymore. All the scenes with Stephen King are just fantastic as well. The scene underneath Castle Discordia with that big creature chasing him through the tunnels is, in my opinion, one of his best suspense scenes. And the scenes with Mordred are great. His scene with the Man in Black is insane, and just him chasing after is just so creepy and weird. And I really like the setup, but that's one of my flaws with this book. It's only a small flaw. It's just when he finally catches up to Roland and Oi, the showdown with him is just a little bit anticlimactic. It just kind of comes and goes a little bit too fast. I love the scenes in Odds Lane and Dandelo. That creature, I find it really cool and potentially interesting that it could be Pennywise actually. And then reaching the tower. There is so many times when you're reading this big book that you're like, oh my god, this is the last, this is it. We're getting to the tower. And just the cathartic feel is just so amazing, and the stress at the same time, it's just so, it just clashes with each other, and you're just like hyperventilating while he's approaching the tower and shouting out the names of all the people that followed him, and then actually climbing to the top of the tower only for him to be sent all the way back to book one with everything resetting is the biggest gut punch ever. It's such an amazing ending. It really puts the whole concept of car being a wheel into literal motion. It's just one big loop, and he realizes that he has been stuck in this endless cycle of pursuing the tower for ages. He could have potentially been doing this for centuries, and it is so painful. It's so jaw-dropping. It's such a great twist, and I love the fact that the last line in this book is the first line in the Gunslinger, because that's where it starts back off again. It's so amazing. He's just trapped in this eternal loop of suffering and chaos that he can maybe never escape due to his own selfish mindset. And I absolutely love the implications. At least my theory on this is that Roland is actually keeping the world held together, because he is going through and stopping the Breakers, he's stopping the Crimson King, and he's doing this for eternity basically. And him doing that while the Midworld resets, all the other worlds keep moving on and living happily and normally. And I find that just such an interesting idea, that he is literally like the Dark Tower. He's the keystone. He is keeping the world alive by just being on this endless quest of pain. It's such a great ending. I love it so much. It's so well written. It just works perfectly. And I'm going to stop talking now because I've been going on about this book for way too long. Number 3 on my list, we have The Gunslinger. And this one jumped massively as I reread it straight after finishing the series. This book is so good. Like, it's so incredibly just well done for what it is. And I just find it just so weird how it doesn't really work that well on first watch, but then first read, and then on the reread, it just clicks and it just works. The subtitle of this book is Resumption, and at first you're like, what the fuck? Why is it called Resumption? You're not resuming anything. This is the beginning of the journey. And then you read Dark Tower 7 and you realize that he's literally resuming the quest again after reaching the town. You're like, oh, holy shit. I just think that this book is genius. The amount of foreshadowing for the rest of the series in this book is just unbelievable. The Man in Black reading Roland, his deck of cards at the end, is just insanely clever. I love so many of the scenes in this thing. I love the scenes with the handcar and the slow mutants chasing them. I really, really love the scene when he chooses between damnation and salvation between the tower and Jake, and dropping Jake into the abyss because he thinks that that's Car's will. He thinks that Jake isn't supposed to be there with him for him to reach the tower. It's just, oh my god, it's so clever. I absolutely love it, and how it just, makes you think this is why he's trapped in this loop, because he's essentially a very selfish person that is trying to achieve something that no man ever really should. And it's so unbelievable on rewatch. I just reread. Fucking stop saying that, you dumbass. Anyway, this book is overall just incredible, and I adore it. Coming in at number 2 on my list is Book 2, The Drawing of the Three. Now this book is just, I consider this book perfect. It's got the opening scene with the lobstrosities, which is just filthy and creepy and weird. I absolutely love just spending so much time on this beach. It's such a cool place to be, and just the doors are so surreal, and just standing there on the beach. And the way it's written when he opens the doors and can literally see through someone else's eyes. It barely makes, it's barely comprehensible. And it's just so cool. I love him drawing Eddie in, the way he has to, smuggle the cocaine and shit like that on the plane. And then has that shootout at Balazar's joint and everything like that. It's just so action-packed and exciting. I love Roland in our world. It's just... it's so cool. I love the scene of Jack Andolini being fed to the lobstrosities. I really, really love Eddie and Roland's relationship. It just blossoms, and you just feel like, you got so many more books to spend with these two characters hanging out with each other, and you're like, fuck yeah. I love this shit. I love the introduction to Susannah in this book as well. I was a little bit confused as to what was going on with Odetta and Detta, but as soon as I realised what was going on with Jack Mort and how she got to this situation, and how when stopping Jack Mort from doing that made Odetta and Detta clash in and make one giant personality being Susannah, you're just like, what? But it's so good. It's so good. It works. And I also really love the introduction to the subplot that comes into play into The Wastelands, Book 3, with the double memories by stopping Jack Mort from pushing Jake. So he's still technically alive in the real world, but in Midworld, he was never there, but he has the memories from Midworld in the real world, or Keystone World, or whatever it's called. And it's such a good subplot, and I just love the way this book just sets everything up. I absolutely love this one. It is just cocaine-fueled wildness, and I love it. So that obviously means that coming in at number 1, my favourite book in the Dark Tower series is Book 3, The Wastelands. This book is one of those ones where I just don't even know where to start, and I'm probably not going to talk about this one for too long, because I could be here all day. Just to list off some amazing scenes. This book opens with the quartet fighting a giant mechanical bear that has been infested by termites and is malfunctioning. This is crazy. This happens in this book. They fight a giant mechanical bear that has gone crazy because termites have eaten out its wires and shit like that. I love the scene with Jake in the house and the demon chasing him through, and him trying to be pulled through as the demon tries to prevent it, and Susannah has to distract the demon by fucking it, which leads to Mordred obviously in book 6 and 7, and it's just, what? Meeting Oi is just awesome. The scenes in Lud with the weird music playing and all the creepy shit and the greys and the pubes and stuff, it just feels like just the whole world is in black and white or something like that. It's so bonkers and weird. And then we get to the best part of the book, and the craziest part. That bear scene wasn't even the weirdest part of the book. That Susannah fucking a demon scene wasn't even the weirdest part of the book. The weirdest part of the book is the last 50 pages of this scene, when our quartet has to board a train to get through this fucked up area called the Wastelands. The Wastelands contains a shitload of mutated animals and weird creatures and shit like that, and this disgusting radioactive water and whatnot. But what the quartet don't realise is that the train that they boarded is suicidal. And this train wants to kill itself and the quartet in a murder-suicide thing by going so fast it runs itself off the rails. This book has a suicidal train. And this book ends with our quartet on the suicidal train as the train speeds up and challenges them to a game of riddles, and if they do not win the game of riddles, then the train is going to kill itself and the rest of the quartet on board. There is a suicidal train that threatens to kill itself and everyone on board if the quartet do not riddle it well enough. This book is insane, and I love it so much. I love it. It's so good. Okay, Jesus Christ. That is my ranking of the Dark Tower series. I love this series so much. It's so good. It's just, I adore it. I adore almost everything about it. I do adore everything about it, minus Wind Through the Keyhole and some parts of Wizard and Glass. But anyway, I just love that series. Let me know what your ranking is down below in the comments. Let me know what you think of my ranking. Let me know if you agree with me. Let me know if you're really pissed off with me for putting Wizard and Glass at the bottom. Anyway, yeah, just thanks heaps for watching, and I'll see you all later. Bye.